this prison, child predators are forced to stand for 16 hours a day, while in this other prison, there's hardly any space for them to lie down. Child predators are amongst the most hated criminals, and their stay in prison is as inhumane as their crimes. From hardly getting a chance to shower, to beatings from guards and inmates, these prisons are notorious for their treatment of child predators. Black Dolphin Prison. Deep in the heart of Russia, near the border with Kazakhstan, lies a fortress of despair, a place where hope is as scarce as daylight during winter. Welcome to Black Dolphin Prison, a name that belies the darkness within its walls. Here, behind a facade adorned with a sculpture of a black dolphin, resides a collection of humanity's most feared and reviled individuals. Murderers, terrorists, cannibals, and child molesters call this place home, each serving a life sentence in one of the oldest and most secure penitentiaries in Russia. Here, the concept of escape is nothing but a fleeting dream, for the only exit is through the embrace of dying. The architecture of Black Dolphin Prison is a testament to its purpose. The facility is a web of concrete and steel, designed not just to confine, but to intimidate. The cells of Black Dolphin are designed to be a world unto themselves, a solitary universe for each inmate. Measuring just 2 by 3 meters, these cells are equipped with a toilet, a sink, and a cot. The walls are painted a drab color, a constant visual monotone that mirrors the bleak existence of its occupants. Each cell is secured not by one, but by a set of 3 steel doors, creating a buffer between the prisoners and the outside world, a series of barriers that reinforce their isolation. The prison's capacity is approximately 700 inmates, each one serving a life sentence for heinous crimes. The rules within Black Dolphin are as rigid as the steel bars that crisscross its windows. Inmates must respond to all commands with a deferential "yes, sir," a verbal acknowledgement of their subjugation. The level of surveillance is intense, with guards making rounds every 15 minutes, 24 hours a day. The eyes of the prison are always watching, ensuring that the rules are followed to the letter. Inmates are under constant scrutiny, their every move observed, their every word listened to. This unending vigilance is a psychological weight that bears down on the prisoners, a reminder that they are never alone, never unwatched. The daily routine for inmates at Black Dolphin is one of regimented monotony. They are woken up at 6 in the morning and are not permitted to rest or sit on their bunks until it is time to sleep again at 10 at night. They are forced to stand for 16 hours a day, forbidden from resting on their bunks, their every movement monitored and regulated. The daily life of an inmate at Black Dolphin is a grim affair. They are fed soup 4 times a day, a monotonous diet that provides sustenance but little else. Their only possessions are books, newspapers, and a radio, small comforts in a world devoid of comfort. The exercise they are afforded is a mere 90 minutes a day, spent in a large cage where they can stretch their legs while their cells are searched for contraband. The arrival of new inmates at Black Dolphin is an exercise in sensory deprivation. They are blindfolded, ensuring that they cannot map the prison's layout or entertain any thoughts of escape. This practice continues whenever they are transported between buildings, a measure designed to keep them disoriented and compliant. The method of escorting inmates within Black Dolphin is unique and speaks volumes about the level of control exerted over the prison's population. Prisoners are made to walk bent over at the waist, their handcuffed hands held high behind their backs, a position that renders them powerless and vulnerable. It is a form of escort that maximizes control while stripping the inmate of any semblance of dignity or autonomy. This prison is a nightmare for child predators. Prem Central Prison. Deep within the heart of Bangkok, a city known for its vibrant streets and cultural tapestry, lies a facility that starkly contrasts the world outside its walls. Here, in one of Thailand's most notorious prisons, a harrowing reality unfolds daily. This is a place where the air is thick with despair, where diseases run rampant, and where the sheer number of inmates defies the bounds of capacity. Amidst this overcrowded chaos, a unique social dynamic emerges, one that includes the lives of ladyboys, a group that adds complexity to an already intricate prison society. It is in this facility, Prem Central Prison, where child predators in Thailand are incarcerated. Imagine a place where the walls close in on you, where the very air you breathe is a luxury that's hard to come by. This is the reality for the inmates of Bangkok's most infamous prison, a place where overcrowding isn't just a problem, it's a crisis. The cells, designed to hold a fraction of their current occupants, are bursting at the seams. Men are packed together so tightly that the concept of personal space space is nothing but a distant dream. The cells have transformed into cramped quarters where inmates are packed like sardines, with barely enough room to lie down. The stifling air is heavy with the stench of sweat and human excrement, as the facilities are woefully inadequate for the overwhelming population. The lack of ventilation and natural light creates an environment where bacteria and viruses thrive, spreading illness like wildfire through the overcrowded population. Tuberculosis, a disease long thought to be under control, has found a resurgence within these walls, its airborne nature turning each cough into a potential death sentence for those nearby. The close quarters make social distancing an impossible dream, and the spread of respiratory infections is rampant. The prison's medical facilities are stretched beyond their limits, with too few doctors and nurses to tend to the burgeoning needs of the inmates. The prison's sanitation system is another victim of the overcrowding. Toilets, few and far between, are in a perpetual state of disrepair, and the sewage system is overwhelmed. The resulting filth not only assaults the senses, but also contributes to the spread of gastrointestinal diseases, which can be particularly deadly in such an environment. According to reports, a hole in the floor of the cramped cells is for human waste. The overcrowding also leads to an increase in violence and stress among the prison population. With tensions running high and personal space at a premium, conflicts are frequent, and the resulting injuries often go untreated, leading to infections and complications that add to the already heavy disease burden. The prison guards, outnumbered and often indifferent to the plight of the inmates, do little to alleviate the conditions. Corruption is rife, with basic necessities available only to those who can pay, further entrenching the disparity between the haves and the have-nots. This system of bribery and extortion only serves to deepen the despair of those without means as they watch helplessly while others secure better food, medicine, and even protection from the guards. In this hellish environment, the human spirit is tested to its limits. The inmates, stripped of their dignity and humanity, are reduced to mere survival. The overcrowding not only robs them of their freedom, but also of their health, as the prison becomes a petri dish for diseases that are as much a part of the incarceration as the bars on the cell windows. Duly State Prison. Nestled in the heart of Unadilla, Georgia, stands Duly State Prison, a name that has become synonymous with chilling controversies that have shaken the very foundations of the Georgia Department of Corrections. This medium-security bastion, tasked with housing sex offenders, has been marred by allegations that range from inmate abuse to harrowing lawsuits, and even ensnared in the web of an FBI sting operation. In the late 1990s, just a few years after Duly State Prison opened its gates, the facility was already embroiled in a scandal that would set a precedent for the years to come. In 1996, a group of 11 brave souls, inmates of Duly, decided to take a stand against what they described as a series of egregious violations of their human rights. They filed a lawsuit that would send ripples through the prison system, accusing the guards at Duly State Prison of engaging in what can only be described as sadistic and degrading abuse. The allegations were grave and painted a picture of a correctional facility that had become a house of horrors for those within its walls. The prisoners' testimonies alleged that the guards took pleasure in their suffering, subjecting them to cruel and unusual punishment that would leave lasting scars, both physical and emotional. The lawsuit aimed to shed light on the dark corners of Duly State Prison, where power and authority had allegedly been twisted into tools of torment. As the case unfolded, it became a battleground for the rights of inmates versus the sweeping powers of prison authorities. The lawsuit brought to the forefront the harsh reality of life behind bars, where inmates, often stripped of their dignity, faced a daily struggle to maintain their humanity against overwhelming odds. The legal battle that ensued was not just about seeking retribution for wrongs done. It was a fight to affirm that even those who have made mistakes against society still deserve to be treated with basic human decency. However, the legal battle these inmates faced was an uphill one, filled with legislative hurdles. The passage of the Prison Litigation Reform Act became a pain in the neck in their pursuit of justice. This act, passed in the mid-1990s, was designed to curtail the number of lawsuits filed by prisoners. It stipulated that no federal civil action could be brought by a prisoner for mental or emotional injury suffered while in custody without a prior showing of physical injury. This piece of legislation became the heart of the defense's argument, a shield against the prisoner's claims of psychological torture. So, without physical evidence, the prisoner's claims of mental and emotional abuse could not be recognized in the federal court. Apart from mistreating the inmates, in February 2016, the institution was thrust into the national headlines as part of a sweeping FBI sting sting operation that exposed a network of corruption within the Georgia state prison system. Duly State Prison was one of 9 facilities implicated in the operation, which culminated in the indictment of 46 correctional officers on federal charges. The FBI raid revealed a clandestine operation where contraband such as cell phones, weapons, and drugs had infiltrated the prison, much of it smuggled in by the very individuals tasked with upholding the law. 10 employees of Duly State Prison were among those indicted, casting a shadow of doubt over the integrity of the facility's staff and the security measures in place. The sting operation was a damning indictment of the systemic issues plaguing the prison, where the lines between law enforcement and criminality had been blurred. The fallout from the FBI operation was significant, prompting a re-evaluation of prison policies and personnel. It served as a wake-up call to the Georgia Department of Corrections, highlighting the need for stringent oversight and ethical conduct within its ranks. Watton Prison. Deep within the heart of Nottinghamshire lies a fortress of containment, HMP Watton, a name that echoes with the weight of its purpose. HMP Watton, a name that echoes with the weight of its purpose, is home to approximately 850 male inmates, each one convicted of sex offences. This prison, nestled in the village near Bingham, is not just any correctional institution. It is a specialised fortress housing individuals who are deemed highly dangerous, with over 80% of its population assessed as presenting a high or very high risk of harm to others. As the morning sun barely creeps above the horizon, the stark, unyielding walls of HMP Watton stand in grim contrast to the quaint village that surrounds it. Inside, the air is heavy, not just with the weight of confinement, but with the palpable tension that comes from housing some of the most dangerous individuals in the country. The living quarters, particularly in the notorious B Wing, are a testament to the harsh realities of prison life. Cells are cramped, with space at a premium, forcing inmates to navigate the delicate balance between personal space and the need for communal living. The proximity of the toilets to the beds offers little in the way of privacy, a daily indignity that the inmates must endure. Ventilation is poor, and the walls, coated with black mold, tell a silent story of neglect. Some prisoners, in a desperate bid for warmth and a semblance of comfort, have resorted to lining their walls with cardboard. This makeshift insulation is a stark reminder of the conditions they face, conditions that some would argue border on the inhumane. The prison's approach to bad behavior is punitive, often resulting in inmates being confined to these oppressive cells for extended periods. This isolation can be suffocating, both physically and mentally, as the lack of interaction and the monotony of the cell's 4 walls close in on them. Medication, a lifeline for many, has become a currency within these walls, leading to bullying and illicit trading. The lack of a consistent supply has endangered the inmates' health and compromised the safety of the prison as a whole. This scarcity fuels a black market that thrives on desperation and vulnerability. The psychological toll of this environment is profound. The constant surveillance, the loss of privacy, and the punitive nature of the regime can erode mental well-being. Self-harm incidents have become more common and are more prevalent in HMP Watton than in other comparable institutions, a harrowing indicator of the despair that can take hold when hope is in short supply. While those who frequently self-harm receive some level of support, others who suffer in silence often go unnoticed, their quiet desperation echoing through the corridors. The impact of confinement on the human psyche cannot be overstated. The lack of meaningful human interaction, the absence of natural light, and the monotonous repetition of the daily routine can lead to a sense of disconnection from the world outside. But for these child predators, the punishment is deserved. Attica Correctional Facility. Attica Correctional Facility is best known for the famous prison riot in 1971, but even more recently, the prison has been in the limelight for awarding a child molester $2 million. What happened to this man in jail goes to show that Attica Correctional Facility is not pleasant to child predators. Roy Harriger, once a respected pastor in the small town of Lyndonville, New York, led the Ashwood Wesleyan Church with a seemingly devout and caring hand. But beneath the surface of this religious leader's life lay dark secrets that would shock the community to its core. In the early 2000s, allegations surfaced that would forever tarnish the image of the man who stood at the pulpit. It was revealed that Harriger had committed unspeakable acts against the most vulnerable members of his own family, his grandchildren. The pastor had engaged in multiple acts of sexual conduct, which included at least one act of sexual intercourse, deviate sexual intercourse, or aggravated sexual contact with children less than 13 years old. According to New York state law, this constituted sexual sexual conduct against a child in the first degree, a crime that carries severe penalties for those found guilty. The case against Harriger was built on the courageous testimonies of his grandchildren, who, despite their tender ages, recounted the abuse they had suffered over a period of time not less than 3 months in duration. The verdict was unanimous, and Harriger was sentenced to 15 years in state prison. As Harriger began his sentence at Attica Correctional Facility, a place known for its harsh conditions and violent history, he would soon become a victim himself. It was during his incarceration here that Harriger, a convicted child predator, became a victim of a vicious assault that would later become the subject of a contentious legal battle. The assault occurred on May 15, 2013, a day that began like any other in the high-security prison. Harriger, who relied on a cane for mobility, was attending an orientation class when suddenly the facility was placed on lockdown. Amidst the confusion, Harriger was called out of the room and offered protective custody, a decision that should have ensured his safety, but instead led to a brutal attack. As a correctional officer escorted him, Harriger's head was slammed against a wall. The officer then instructed him to hold the position for 15 minutes, an order that seemed to serve no purpose other than to humiliate and disorient the elderly pastor. The assault did not end there. On his way back to his cell, Harriger was struck twice in the back of the neck, blows that caused him to fall and lose consciousness. The severity of the beating left him with right-side paralysis, facial drooping, and speech problems, confining him to a wheelchair. The aftermath of the attack saw Harriger navigating a new reality, one where he was not only a prisoner, but also a disabled man, vulnerable to the dangers that lurk within the prison system. It was for this assault that he would sue the prison and get $2 million in compensation. Nevertheless, Attica isn't welcoming to child predators, no matter how old they may be. Rikers Island. Imagine a place where the walls echo with the sounds of despair, a place where the air is thick with the stench of neglect, a place where overcrowding, violence, and a lack of basic amenities are the norm. This isn't the setting of a dystopian novel. This is Rikers Island, New York City's main jail complex, where photographs obtained laid bare conditions that are nothing short of hellish. These images, a shocking expose of reality for the inmates, reveal a world where overcrowding, unsanitary living spaces, and a blatant disregard for human life are the norm. As summer's heat bears down on New York City in July, the walls of Rikers Island's Otis Bantam Correctional Center contain a crisis brewing out of sight. The notorious jail, despite its budget running into the billions of dollars, has been thrust into the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Inside, the intake cells designed for temporary holding have become the indefinite homes for hundreds of inmates. Inmates, some awaiting trial, others serving sentences, languish for days or even weeks in temporary holding cells, a clear violation of city regulations that mandate assignment to a housing area within 24 hours. Yet, they find themselves crammed body to body, 26 at a time, in cells meant for far fewer. The conditions they endure are deplorable. Floors have become tapestries of rotten food, maggots, urine, feces, and blood. Basic necessities like beds and toilets have been replaced with cardboard and plastic bags. The air is often stale, the environment filthy, and the sense of humanity all but forgotten. There is little, if any, access to fresh air, toilets, toilet paper, or showers, and inmates are routinely denied visits with their attorneys and trips to the courthouse for hearings on their pending cases. Some of the only water inmates are able to drink comes from tiny sinks inside the pens, and without cups, detainees use their unwashed hands to scoop up sips or put their mouths under the faucets. Medical neglect at Rikers is common, with inmates claiming that calls for help are met with indifference. Medical attention, when needed, is not a matter of urgency, but of convenience, with delays that could mean the difference between life and death. Stories have emerged of individuals writhing in pain as their pleas for treatment are ignored until it's too late. Mental health crises are met with solitary confinement instead of counseling, and the sick are often left to fend for themselves. Communication with the outside world, a lifeline for many, has been stifled at Rikers Island. Incoming mail, a simple joy that connects the inmates to their loved ones, is withheld. The right to see visitors, especially during the COVID lockdowns, to consult with lawyers, to maintain that crucial link to life beyond the bars, is often denied. Court dates, bail hearings, and motion hearings are continuously postponed, leaving many in a state of legal limbo, their fates hanging in the balance. The conditions at Rikers Island have become a breeding ground for disease, despair, and death. Inmates, deprived of basic sanitation, are forced to relieve themselves in plastic bags, sleep on floors soiled with waste, and exist in an environment where the very air they breathe is thick with the stench of decay. The lack of access to food, medical care, and legal representation is not just a violation of regulations, but of human rights. Rikers Island is truly any child predator's nightmare. Bhurka Prison. One of the most famous prisoners at the Bhurka prison was Valery Georgievich Azratian, a serial rapist and child molester who committed over 20 rapes of girls and young women during the 1980s. Once you know the conditions in the jail, you'll understand why such a monster was left there to die. Nestled in the heart of Moscow's Tverskoy district, Bhurka prison stands as a chilling monument to centuries of inhumane treatment and human rights violations. Originally established in the 18th century, this formidable institution has witnessed the ebb and flow of Russia's turbulent history, from the days of imperial rule to the oppressive grip of the Soviet Union. Today, Bhurka remains notorious for its severe overcrowding and the harrowing conditions that the inmates endure. Within these walls, a dire struggle unfolds daily as prisoners face a gauntlet of health issues exacerbated by neglect and an environment that seems frozen in time. Within the imposing walls of Bhurka prison, the concept of personal space is a distant luxury. The cells, originally designed to accommodate a mere 20 individuals, are now bursting at the seams with up to 80 inmates. The air is thick, stagnant, and suffocating as bodies press against one another in a desperate bid for comfort that never comes. Overcrowding is not just a word here, it is a relentless reality that breeds a host of other afflictions. The health concerns within Bhurka are as severe as its cramped quarters. Diseases that many thought were relics of the past, like tuberculosis, ran rampant through the population. HIV, too, casts a long shadow over the inmates, with a staggering 37,000 prisoners across Russia living with the virus. Within these walls, 1 in 5 individuals inject illegal drugs, and an alarming 60% of them share needles, further exacerbating the spread of these life-threatening illnesses. Nutrition and hygiene fare no better in this environment. Meals are a monotonous parade of porridge and soup with little to no nutritional value, leaving inmates in a perpetual state of hunger and malnutrition. The infrequent showers with hard, graying soap do little to stave off the grime and despair that cling to the skin and soul alike. The psychological toll on Bhurka's prisoners is immeasurable. The constant threat of violence, the lack of privacy, and the sheer uncertainty of their fates weigh heavily on their minds. It is a place where hope struggles to survive and the human spirit is put to the ultimate test, and in such conditions, only the worst in society are deserving. Well, child predators are up there with the worst that humanity has to offer, and it's no surprise many of them end up there. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.